Okay, we're back and we're COMP308 and it's week 8, lesson 8, part 3. Yesterday we talked about a little bit of Node, kind of set up a Node server, and then from there we talked about the mean stack a little bit, explaining what the mean stack is about within some detail. When I'm done, I'm almost done this PowerPoint presentation for you guys. I want to put together all the details. I'm going to throw this up on your content so you have some background, so you can always look at the PowerPoint presentation as a reference card, if you will. So you can go through it, and all the commands will be there, the things that we've done here. I'm kind of recording the stuff that we're doing. So it's kind of a companion to the videos, or the videos might be a companion to the PowerPoint presentation, however you look at it, if you want to go back and check it out. So again, just as a recap, one thing we talked about yesterday was a couple of things that I want you guys to get. One, I wanted you to get your Heroku account. So that's going to be one of the things in the Dropbox, right? Another one, I wanted you to sign up for MongoLab, right, and get your MongoLab, free MongoLab account. So I think it's important for you to do that. We're going to do things with MongoLab. That's the second thing. The third thing was I wanted you to download and install brackets. That was Lilia's idea, right, for marks, right? I got to mention you. I got to immortalize you here.
My idea.
It was your idea.
It was originally your idea.
Not really my idea.
I wrote it down.
See, she
and
wrote
I
it down.
just reminded you later.
No problem. I love it, right?
How will you know that?
I'll know. All right. I'll know. I'm omniscient. I know these things, right? And then the, just like, I'm the narrator in the story. I'll know. No, we'll figure it out. It's really the honor system to me. If you don't do it, it's to your detriment, right? I'll figure out a way to get you to tell me. All right. And the last thing was do this code school tutorial. Now you might think, Tom, I don't really want to do a code school tutorial here in class. I want to learn from you. Fine, we're going to talk about Angular next week anyway. But the great thing about this code school tutorial on AngularJS.org, I'm just going to go here to the tutorial for a second. Right? Not that tutorial. It's called free course. Right? If I go to home, learn, and I go to free course, this is where it is. Right? It actually, if you start the course, it's a video course, and it talks about some really cool concepts like JavaScript closures, which make understanding Angular a little bit easier, right? So I want to start today off by talking about what the hell a closure is, right? Because we've never really talked about a closure, right? And we want to create something called a self-executing function. Right, with Angular, you'll notice that right now what's happening is when you do this code school thing, the first thing they teach you is how to do the self-executing function. So I'm going to kick up, I'm going to go to developer and throw up my brackets here. So here's brackets. It's going to access kind of some files that we were working on yesterday. Right, I have my Bootstrap file and so on. I'm doing this in I'm doing this thing on the Mac, but again, at the end of the day, it should look very similar for you on the PC. So here, as an example, I want to create a closure. So I'm going to show you how it looks like. So I'm going to create a new JavaScript file. Right? I'm going to call this example.js. So I want to talk about closures a little bit. And if I want a closure, the closure looks like this. Typically, we have a function. So here's how we kind of start off a function. And we usually name the function like this. Function name. Whatever the function name is, right? And then you have a set of brackets. That's typically your function, right? What I want you guys to get used to when you look at Angular and when you start looking at things like Node and Express and all this new technology stuff we're talking about, right? Don't think about yourselves making this type of function anymore, all right? What you're going to be creating is more of a callback function. And the callback function is going to be a function that's going to be called within a function, okay? An example of that would be if I was to call, I wanted to launch this function, and inside the function call itself, in the function itself, I make an anonymous function call. Take a look, right? It's a function within a function. I call the function, and I actually use this callback right here, right? Well, this is actually in the constructor of the function name itself. I'm sending in some information. This is perfectly valid and legal to do. And then the actual function body is here. So this function body, these brackets here, these curly braces, are for this function called function name. These brackets from here to here are for the anonymous function right here. This anonymous function, they're called two things, anonymous functions and callbacks. So you'll see those things that are mentioned. All right, well this is kind of cool. The same concept applies when we're creating anonymous functions. If I go like this, if I say, I name it, you'll see this structure more often than not. My function, right, is equal to, right, function. This is a very more typical way of seeing it. This, that's also legal. You see in this format, right? So there's two formats. The first format where you say function and then you name it, and this format where I actually have to put a var in place here. I'm creating a variable called my function, which is actually an alias for this anonymous function right here. Okay? It's actually the same thing. Function with a name and then brackets, and then after that curly braces. And this, my var of my function is equal to function, anonymous function here, right? So JavaScript have these two forms, and this is what's confusing to some beginners. When they look at stuff like this, they go, I don't get it. How come sometimes people write it like this, and other times they write it like this? You know, instead of var my function, it's called function my function. How come you can write it both ways, like this? They're both legal, both of these ways, okay? Can't do both, obviously this would cause an error, right? Because you're talking about the same named object, right? You can do one or the other, but not both. Well, you could, but you kind of would mess it up if you did it this way. Actually, this one would take precedence, the last one. Okay, so this is the one thing I want to talk about. What if I wanted to create a wrapper that goes around these two functions? So I have my function called just my function, right? Or maybe I want to make it like this, because you're going to see examples more like this in Angular and in the stuff that we're doing today, right? But I want it to be self-executing. How do I do that, right? Well, the first thing you need to know is the function itself has to be surrounded by brackets. So the bracket kind of goes around the whole thing, right? So these things, you'd have brackets around the whole function itself, okay? And these brackets, if you will, if you think about a function as an object, if I just take these brackets, hold on a second, if I just take these brackets like this, right? So kind of a curly brace, I'm going to cut this out, and I put this curly brace down here, right? Yeah. And I'm going to tab in a little bit. What I've defined here, this is, I can do this, I can surround my function with a curly brace, and this is just an unnamed, an anonymous namespace that I've created, right? I can do this too, right? I can also do one of these things. I can say something like this, var, you know, my namespace, right, is equal to that. I can do that too, right? I want you to see these things for what they are, because what I'm doing is inside my namespace then, if I start typing my namespace, here it is my namespace, dot, I can access different things inside of my namespace. Like right now, for example, I don't have an object inside my namespace, right? Because here I'm defining an object. Let's say I create a name, right? My name variable, not var name, right? And let's say I don't have to use anything here, var name, and I also create something else, var, I'm creating a variable of age as an example, and this is all in JavaScript. Then if I use my namespace dot, I can actually try and access name, and my namespace dot, if I can try and access age, right? Because those two objects are here. I can actually do it just like this too, by the way. I can say my namespace dot name is equal to Tom, right? I can assign them this way, and my namespace dot age is equal to whatever number I want, right? I could do it this way too. So here's my namespace. But my namespace could also be my class. If I was to redefine this, I can say something like, this is my class. My class has these properties, which is equal to a function. This time I'd have to use the function keyword for my class, and this is the constructor method, right, of my class. This is how classes work in JavaScript, right? And of course, then I would I could do something like this. My class, right, dot name, right, is equal to Tom, whatever. Or if I wanted to instantiate an object of my class, I could say, you know, Tom, my variable Tom is equal to a new my class object, right? That's how we do classes in JavaScript, right? There's different notations, by the way. We talked about this before. This is constructor notation, right? There's also literal notation. I'll talk about this in a second, right? So I could do then tom.name or tom.age is valid, right? I can assign tom.age and name. I can also listen for certain things. I can also say, well, I want to take in age, right? And I want to take in name, right? And you know what? At the top here, I'm going to say var name is equal to name, and var age is equal to age, right? I can do that just like we normally say. So I take in age and name. Here I can send in age and name. So I can say my age is 45, my name is Tom, right? I can do that. That's how my class, this thing works. So again, we're just exploring different syntax for the same things. We're talking about the same things over and over again, right? But this is constructor notation. We also have something called literal notation. Literal notation is a completely different thing. When we establish a class, as an example, in literal notation, it looks a little different than this. Again, both ways would work fine. Sometimes you see objects defined like this. Here, let's just get rid of this object for a second, right? And inside the object itself, right, you also might see something like this. You have these two curly braces, right? And inside the curly braces, you have something like this. Name, right? You might have an object like this. Tell me if this looks something like what would look to you. Name, Tom, right? Age, 45. Height, kind of thing. 6 feet, and so on. So you have these objects. And instead of my class, you might call it person, right? And this person, which is a specific person, would have name, age, and height, right, as objects, as elements. And if I was going to access this thing, I could say something like, well, if I want to go person, if I want to do console.log, this is perfectly legal as well, and I go person.name, it would come up, right? Person.height, that would also come up, right? Because I'm declaring an object with 3 parameters, name, age, and height. Okay? So I want you to be able to see these things and then not be freaked out by them and say, what the hell is that he's doing? How can you do that in JavaScript? What are these curly braces that he speaks of anyway, right? What about if I do this? If I have this person, so instead of person, I make it something called persons, right? I go, or people. Let's call it people. That's more accurate, right? So I've got some people, the people class, right? And inside the people class, I've got this, but I'm making it now into an array. I've got an array of objects, right? Here's the bottom part of my array. I'm going to put this over here, and here's the first object, right? And I'm going to put a comma, and I can do one of these, right? So I have another object, right? Let's do this properly, Tom. So I go here, copy, paste, paste, paste. I got a few objects. This guy's name is Mike, right? He's 30. This guy's name is Nick. He's 10. This girl's name is Lily. Why not, right? She's 11, right? And she's not 6 feet. She's only, 3 feet. Nick is 10. He's a tall kid. He's 4 feet. Mike, he's 7 feet tall, right? Different options, right? And, we have all these things. They're inside of this array element. I want you to see this thing. So I'm just going to get you to see these different structures. Now, of course, I don't put the last comma in there because each of these elements are objects, but now I've declared people as an array of objects with different properties. These are different fields. Name, age, and height will be different properties for each of the objects. Do you guys see this? Okay. It's important for you guys to see these kinds of structures because once we start going forward, we're going to have anonymous objects with requirements like this, these properties that come up. So it's important for us to do this. But if I look and see what a self-executing function is, if I kind of go into online and Tom says, you know, we're going to use self-executing functions, what is that? And I want to kind of train myself, self-executing function in JavaScript, right? I can look it up. So here's self-executing anonymous functions. And what they've got is a format, right? So here's a function that's named as an example. And now here's what we've got in here. Here's a function. It's an anonymous function, right, with a weird kind of format that we've never really looked at before, all told. So this is really the self-executing anonymous function that we want to create. Look at the format here, right? So we're doing this, and we're adding this at the end because this is the execution piece. Let me pull this up for you guys to see. And this is a perfect example of this. So here's our people, and now let's wrap our people array, which is an array of objects, around this self-executing anonymous function. So first of all, we make an anonymous function. That's how you start off. And the anonymous function works like this. That's the anonymous function. So everything inside these brackets here will be the first piece. The second piece, right, is that you wrap everything with this closure, if you will, these brackets. And the third piece is that you create one of these. So this structure, and if I'm just going to go back to the example here. So the function, open bracket, close bracket, the semicolons, the close brackets here, and then these two brackets at the end create this thing called an anonymous function with an anonymous closure, or a self-executing anonymous function. This syntax right here. So if I want to execute my people variable and I want it to be available to me and execute right away, I'm going to take all this stuff, right? Here's my people variable. I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to put it inside my self-executing anonymous function, right? And of course, I've got to separate this with a semicolon, right? Because at the end of my array, when I kind of create my array, I create it with a semicolon. Funky? You're going to see this syntax over and over again. And what this does is it isolates our namespace. So that way our namespace, our variables, only live and die within this self-executing anonymous function. So our people variable won't be able to escape this function when we create it. But this is what a self-executing anonymous function is. You're going to need to do this when you do Angular, all right? So if you don't worry, if you missed it, it's on the video. Right? Self-executing anonymous function. We're going to talk about this a lot as we go forward, and you're going to see stuff like this when we move through Angular and Express. So let's go back to on the Windows side. Here's my Windows side. I have this some example code that we've been using from yesterday, right? So I'm going to put some of these things. One of them was called this Node demo folder, and if you look in the Node demo folder from yesterday, we have a CSS file, a JS file, a Node modules file, with an Express file, with a Node modules file, with a bunch of other requirements in here, right? We kind of did that yesterday, right? Which is cool, but doesn't really do anything for us. And I mentioned that if I actually was to look at this stuff, so I'm going to pull up brackets here on the PC side now, and if I look inside my index.html, I have this kind of example Bootstrap file. And again, we talked about Bootstrap as how we can use classes similar to what we did in Foundation. If you notice, this is a 12-column grid that I'm using here and so on. That's what I'm doing here, right? And if I look at my package.json file, my package.json file has not only the stuff that I put in here, but also it mentions this dependency. So here's my dependency. And my dependency is for this Node, for Node demo. This is my home page. But my dependency is Express. This Express module is one of the dependencies listed inside the package.json file. The package.json file inside every one of my Node projects tells me all of the project's dependencies, right? And I need to know that because if I'm downloading your package from GitHub, as an example, then I want to be able to, I don't want to throw up all those Node modules because it's too big. It's like thousands of files we're going to throw up on GitHub. It's going to take forever. And you know what? GitHub doesn't need more of that stuff, right? What we need to do is only throw up the stuff that we're only going to put up on GitHub, the things that we need. And if I'm going to install your project, right, I'm going to download your code, go into your folder, my folder that I cloned from you, and hit an npm install command. When I do an npm install command, it's going to look inside your package.json file, and it's going to look to see if I have any dependencies, and then it's going to download and install those dependencies, right? So before I execute my code. So I don't have to package up and throw up my dependencies up on GitHub. It's not necessary. Okay, that's what these dependencies do. Okay, so I talked a little bit about closure. I wanted you to understand a little bit about that stuff. And anonymous self-executing functions, which we're going to see in Angular. Okay, so we looked at this mean stack and how it fits. Again, we've kind of explored a little bit of Node.js yesterday and the NPM, Node Package Manager. Today we're going to go into more of Express.js and what that is and how it can help us, right? Okay, so we've done Node. I'm just going to skip through this. We talked about how it's event-driven, and we did all these commands yesterday. This install, this -g, when you do an npm install -g, it sets up whatever the package name is globally, so it's globally available. It's not just part of your local folder. It's available to all projects within your computer, right? It's a global variable now. It's something that's available everywhere. We need to do that for Express. So if we're going to use the Express templating engine, and we're going to focus on EJS. EJS being the templating engine we want to use. There's two templating engines. Again, I mentioned this yesterday. EJS and Jade. Okay. If I was to look at the Express documentation here, let's go to Express. Join me on express.js.com. And if you look at getting started, here's my getting started guide. It tells me I got to create an app. I got to do this npm init. It tells you how to create it, eh? It does this npm install Express. I'm saving my Express as a dependency. That's what I'm doing here. And then I'm going to install Express, into my locally. I can do this locally without the save option, or add it to the dependencies list here. That's my first thing in getting started. There's also something called a Express generator. However, if I install Express with the -g option, now I can actually execute an Express command. For me to know whether I have Express installed, right, I can go, here I'm on the Windows side now, I'm going to load up my file, and I'm just going to kind of do a CD into my Node demo file that I got over here. If I do this and kind of do a dir, here's all my files, right? And if I do something like this, Express by itself with no npm, -- version, right? It tells me that I've got a globally installed version of Express of 4.11.2. What do you have? Do you have a globally Express version of, or a globally installed version of Express? Chances are not, right? And the way, of course, to do that is do this. Let's do it together. So you have it like I have it. This is one of your requirements for using Express, by the way. So you go npm install -g Express. Okay? When you do that, you issue that command on the Windows machine. Windows is going to try and see, A, do you have Express already installed? And if you do, right, as an example, it's going to not install anything new. If you don't have Express installed, right, it's going to install it for you. Now if I do the same thing, if I go Express -- version, right, it's going to tell me that 4.11.2 is the latest version. So you should have the same thing, yeah? So all I did was go npm install -g Express. Do you see the same thing I see? How about you guys? let's do the same. Let's keep on the same page here, guys, because if we don't keep on the same page, right, I'm going to do something and you're going to go, what? How did he do that? Right? Yeah? Is it running? I'm looking at you because if it runs for you, if it runs for you, then huh? Doesn't run at all? Doesn't do an npm install -g? Didn't work for you?
It doesn't recognize Express.
So you go npm install -g express doesn't work? For you guys too?
My computer is so good.
That's not good. How about you guys? Does it work for you guys?
It seems like something installed, but when I check the version, it says it's not recognizable.
Minus version? Yeah. Let me know when you guys are ready. If you try minus, you have to do a -g install though for it to work properly, right?
I think last time I worked on a school computer, this time I'm using my computer.
Okay.
Maybe there's difference.
Anyways, so when you get to this, if you don't do this -g install -g express, so again, npm, you have to use the npm command, right? And again, how do I get the npm command? If you're using your computer and you haven't installed npm or Node, right? npm won't work. First you have to install Node. That's the first piece, right? You have to install Node first. If you don't have a Node installed in your machine, it's not going to work, right? Because Node allows npm to work. npm is the Node package manager. So in order for your npm to work, Node has to be installed. So download and install Node first. Okay, if it all works, this is what we can get now. If I kind of dial out to my desktop, I've got my typical website here with what's called Node demo. We're going to do a new one, right? We're going to do a new one called Express demo, right? So we're going to kind of put Node demo on the side here with a bunch of other my other experiments, and we're going to do this. Now check this out. Once Express is installed, you should be able to do something like this: Express, right? -e for EJS. That's the templating engine, right? And then the name of the app that you want to install, create. I'm going to create an app called Express Demo, right? And press Enter. When I do that, it does all this. It says, hey, create Express Demo. I created my package.json file. I created my app.js file. I created a public folder with a bunch of stuff in there, a roots folder, a views folder, a bin folder, and it says, hey, do this. Install dependencies. Go to cd Express Demo and npm install. I got to do that. And by the way, you have to use debug is equal to express demo : star dot bin slash www. What does all this stuff mean? Well, it means this. I'm just going to clear the screen. So here's my screen. Now it's all black for whatever reason, right? Let's put it back to white for you guys. Change my screen colors for some awful reason, right? And we're going to go to colors, screen font, screen text going to be black. Press OK. There we go. All right, so here's on my desktop. If I do a dir, I have this Express demo here, right? If I kind of dial this up a little bit, Express demo, blah, blah, blah. This is how I did it. I said Express -e, Express demo. That's when Express was downloaded. Do you guys have this? Can you use Express now, Lilia?
No, I'm still downloading.
Okay. So if I go here now, if I go into my Express demo folder, we'll do this a couple times today. If I go to Express demo, here I am, and if I go dir, I see that I have a bunch of different things here. App.js, a bin folder, a package.json file already made for me, right? A public file, public folder, a roots folder, and a views folder. The best way for me to take care of this is a couple things. I got to do the first thing I got to do when I create my new Express folder is do this: npm install, which is going to install all of my dependencies. Enter. This is going to download and install my dependencies, right, for my folder, right? So here's all the stuff that I installed. Now if I do a dir, I also have a node modules folder. Take a look. So I go, if I see node modules, I'm going to do this one more time with you guys, one more time from scratch, right? So I'm going to go, again, if I go cd node modules and type directory, I have a bunch of other node modules. I don't just have Express, I have Express, I have EJS, which is my templating engine. I have debug, which is what I want to use. I have cookie parser, body parser, and some other ones. Serve, favicon, and so on. All right? Well, I want to kick off my server, and it said something like, I got to do debug, capital letters, right, equals to the name of my file, which is Express demo, and then colon star space dot backslash www, or backslash bin backslash www. That's what it is. Now you can't do that. If I go debug in Windows, it goes bang. Debug is not recognized as an internal or external command. But if I do this, in Windows you have to do set debug. If I do that, it says, hey, environment variable debug is not defined, right? So if I go set debug is equal to, and again, I'll call it express demo colon star space dot backslash bin backslash www. If I do that and press enter, right, that now my debug variable is this. So if I type the word debug, then theoretically it should work. Now if I go set debug, it tells me what my debug is. I can set my environment variable to debug, okay, when I do my debug command. So we need to use the set keyword for a couple things. Set env for environment and set debug. Well, I'm going to show you what it does later on, what this stuff does. If I want to run my node server now, right, I can do a couple ways. One of them is I can go node, right, backslash bin backslash www. Press enter. When I do that, it says Express demo server listening on port 3000. Okay, let's leave this alone. I'm going to go back to my server, right? So I'm actually having a generator happen, right? I go to localhost, right? Localhost, how about localhost 3000? How about that, Tom? Localhost 3000, and then I got my Express. Welcome to Express. Can you guys get there? You're rebooting? Okay. So what have I done? Right? Let's do this whole process again so you see it one more time from the beginning. Okay? I'm going to kind of kill brackets for a second. So we do this thing again. I'm going to open up my terminal. First of all, I'm going to kill my node demo, sorry, my Express demo folder. I've got my Express demo folder over here. I'm just going to make this all again. So I'm just going to kill it. Okay, so there it is, gone. Let's do it again from scratch. All right? First thing, I'm going to go to my desktop. That's where I want my folder to be. So I'm going to go cd cd . I'm going to go cd users tom, right? cd users tom desktop, right? And if I do a directory, I get all my folders. I'm in desktop. I've already installed Express. I'm going to go Express space -e for EJS, right? And the name of my file my name of my new project. I'm going to call this again Express demo, right? My new project. Enter. When I do that, it creates, what I'm doing here is I'm using a generator, my Express generator, to kind of put this stuff together. All right? And if I do a CLS, I clear my screen, it takes me back up to my command prompt here. I'm just going to reset my colors, so we're back to normal colors again, the ones so you can see it a little better, right? So here's my desktop, here's my Express demo, right? After I've done that, I've got to go into that directory. I've got to go cd Express demo, right? And then I've got to do an npm install. When I do that, it takes all the files that I need that's listed in my package.json file that's generated automatically for me by using Express, and it adds all my dependencies in my node modules folder that it creates. So if I do a dir now, I have a node modules folder. One more time. I'm going to do this a couple times with you guys because I want you guys to get this like down, right? Or else you guys are going to be in trouble when we do this a couple times. I'm going to go too fast and you're just going to go, hold on, Tom, how did it do it? So now let's try it together. The guys online, if you're watching on the video, let's do it together, right? Before you do this, you need to make Express a global variable. I'm gonna wait till Lily's up and running. So Lily's still rebooting her machine, right? Did you guys make express local variable, global variable? If you can't do that, you're not gonna be able to do the express functions. Let's do that. How do I do express, make express a global variable? I gotta go npm install -g express, right? If I do that at the command prompt and press enter, it's going to download and install the latest version of Express, but it's going to install it globally. So I can use the express command, right? It'll be available to me locally now, globally, right? So if I do express minus version, right, I should get a version of 4.11.2. Okay, that's the most important. Those are the two pieces. So first I've got to install Express globally, then I'm ready to use my generator. A generator is just a quick tool that's built into Express to generate a brand new project. So instead of you having to create the folder structure on your own, it does it all for you. It creates it almost does an npm or npm init kind of command, if you will. It does that for you right away, so you don't have to do it on your own. It creates your own package.json file and your folder structure, but the only thing it doesn't do is it doesn't download your node modules. You have to go into the folder and do an npm install in order for you to do that. And then you kick off the project with the way it tells you how to do it. I was waiting for you to be up. Are you up yet?
Don't worry about it, just continue.
I can't continue, it's
No
bad.
problems.
How about you guys in the back? Do you guys install npm globally? Yeah? Anyone else? Did you all install Express globally? Did you? You guys in the back. Did it install? Yes or no? Express -g? You use the -g switch for Express? Okay. If you do that now, let's do this one more time. Last time, and then I'll take a break, right? So I gotta take a brief bathroom break here. So I'll go Express. I'll give you a chance to boot up too.
Yes.
Express, right? -e for EJS. That's the templating engine we're going to be using, right? And then the name of my new folder or project that I'm going to use, right? And I'm going to, of course, call it, in this case again, one more time, Express Demo. Now watch what it gives me. Be careful, watch. If I click Enter, and you have it installed, it does all this. If I just kind of scroll up, it says create Express Demo. That's the folder. Create Express Demo package.json file, which is my the file that I need to tell me what dependencies I need for my project, right? It gives me a public folder, a routes folder, and a views folder. There's your MVC right there, right? A bin folder with a www folder inside of it, right? And inside of that, a www file actually. And inside of that it says, do these things. Look what it says here. Do these things. It says, go cd express demo and npm install. That's the first instruction it tells you. Install your dependencies and then run the app. Let's try that. So I go cd express demo. I'll follow the instructions. Here I am, right? Let me just change the background colors here. So we have the colors that I want. I don't like those ugly black colors because you guys can't see it as well. That's why. I don't mind black, but just for you guys, it's just easier for you to see this. Okay, so here's the commands I need, right? Tells you what to do. So it's cd express, and then I want to do npm install. When I do npm install, it installs my dependencies like this. See? I did this like 3 times now, right? When I install my dependencies, take a lot of all these things have sub-dependencies as well. Okay? I need to issue this command, debug, right, is equal to express demo, this command right here. And if I right-click and mark, I can mark the area that I want to use. This is the command I want, right? If I go down here now and go to my command, if I just do this command and kind of put paste and press enter, on the Windows system it won't work because you need the set command, right? If I do set debug and paste, right, then this should work. But unfortunately it does not in most Windows systems, right? So if I put, if I kind of put kind of type in there Express demo and press enter, that doesn't recognize. If I put debug and enter, that's not recognized, right? I can't do it that way. But what I really need to do is do this for Windows users, .bin/www. Right? Well, we can change this later on. But for now, leave it the way it is. This generator needs this to kick off. .bin/bin/www. If you do that and press enter, right, as an example, it doesn't do anything until you go node, right? And if I was to go node debug, right, that would be cool. Doesn't know what debug is though. If I go node .bin/www, then it runs the server. And the server now is listening on port 3000. I'm just going to reset the colors again for us so we can see what the colors are, so you can see what I'm seeing. And here it is, right? So it says Express demo server listening on port 3000. Okay, and it gives me a little millisecond. Now what if I actually go access port 3000? So here I am on my local host, and I say localhost, 3000, right? Look what it does. On the command line, it actually gives us a get command. It says get, the port that I'm accessing, and it tells me how many milliseconds it took for me to get to that. And it accesses the style sheets, throws up the style sheets, and tells me what I'm doing here, right? If I try to issue another command like this, if I say localhost 3000 /hello, well, there is no hello folder, and it's going to say 404, right? There is no hello folder. That's what the output that's going to come back to me. I can't get to a hello, right? Because I don't have a website like that right now, okay? But take a look at the output that I get here on my console. Hello, it's a 404 error, right? It's 9.3 milliseconds transaction time. So my server is running here in the background, and it's giving me feedback. And it's done that because we've designed it that way. We've actually used the Express generator in order for us to do this. Okay, I'm going to pause it here. We're going to come back and do this again.